So this morning, before our guest speaker, we have the privilege of hearing a membership testimony from one of our folks here. His name is Josh Ritter. Just a little bit about Josh. He's a firefighter, yeah, exactly. So if you could give him a warm welcome. It's just great to hear people's stories of where they were to where they are now. So if you give Josh a very warm welcome.
Hi, my name is Josh. For those of you who don't know me, I've actually been coming to Harvest off and on for about 10 years. I actually started coming to Harvest when I was at the Hiawassee location. So he said it right. I am a firefighter. I've been doing that for about 13 years of my life. I was also in the military, and I just recently got out a few months ago. So that's completely out of my life. It was a long transition. It was hard to cut out, but it's officially done, and it's been helping me grow a lot more in my spiritual life. So it was actually a series of events that brought me back to Harvest this last time. It's been an interesting transition over the past 5 years. The biggest role that played the biggest factor in me coming back was actually my mother. So for me, coming back into my spiritual life and coming closer to God and coming closer to church, it's all due to her. And it was a long story. Through the military, I traveled the world. I went and I did whatever I was told to do. I had run away from home, and I put God, my family, and church on the back burner. I focused on the ways of the world. And 5 years ago, like I said, I had gotten home. I was waiting at an airport terminal for my next flight to take me back. And it was actually, as I was scrolling through Facebook, I actually saw an an advertisement or some sort of a commercial that Harvest had created. And it was a welcoming commercial. And it was this video I was watching, and at first I kind of scoffed at it. And I was like, oh, man. And I was going to just scroll on through and just ignore it all, but I saw a lot of familiar faces in that video, and I just entertained the idea of sticking through it and just watching the rest of the video. I did, and I didn't think anything of it, and so I ended up catching my flight, going home, passing out, and the next morning I woke up, and I was waking up to my phone constantly ringing over and over and over again, and I was like, all right, whatever, so I picked up the phone, and it was my mom. And for those of you who know me, my mom is actually Korean, so it was the first thing she started doing was she was screaming at me in Korean. I was like laying in bed, and she was just blowing my ear off, and she was nagging me about church. That was the first thing that she brought up to me. I had just gotten home from a deployment, and the first thing that my mother cared about was me making sure I was going to church that Sunday. Well, it just so happened that Sunday was Easter Sunday. So, I was like, all right, I was like, fine, Mom, I'll do what you want. I'll go to church. So I took a shower, got ready, came to Harvest, and I sat right there where you guys are all sitting right now, and I listened to Pastor DL talk about the resurrection of Jesus Christ and how and why he died for us, and it was because of his love that we're all here and we're all saved right now. So I guess we got to kind of rewind a little bit in order for you to understand the context of my testimony. Rewind about, 12, 13 years. I was fresh out of high school, and I was going through the fire academy for the very first time. And we had a training scenario in which we're going to do our live burn, and we had to complete the live burn in order to actually officially get our stamp of approval and become firefighters. We all had been training for months and months and months for this live burn, and we finally got the chance, and they set this building on fire, and they threw a couple of dummies in there, and our job was to go inside and actually pull out the dummies, save the dummies' lives, put the fire out, and do a whole slew of other operations, and then they would give us our stamp of approval. So here I am, this 18-year-old kid, never experienced anything like that before in my life. I was terrified. We wear these masks that gives us air, so that we can actually breathe when we go inside superheated environments. And I remember standing right there outside of the door, and I was holding the nozzle, and I was terrified. Sweat was pouring down my face, and you could feel the heat radiating off the door. Smoke was rolling out from anywhere it could roll out. And I had the instructor. He sits there and he just points at me and he screams at me and he's like, "You ready to get in there?" And I'm like, with the mask on, like you can only see, everything above here. So, yeah, you can only see everything above here. So all he sees is like, yeah, like I'm ready to do this. But underneath the mask is the sheer terror. I was like, oh my gosh, no, I can't do this. And he cracks open the door, he sends me in. And it's just complete chaos. Everybody's screaming at each other, fires rolling over our heads, smoke pouring out, you can't see anything. I'm just shooting water everywhere. I'm not getting on the fire, and I have people screaming at me. And they're like, "What are you doing?" And they're pulling me to the right, pulling me to the left. I don't know what happened. At the end, all I know is that we got the dummies out, and we were all downstairs outside of the fire, high-fiving each other, hugging each other, wiping sweat off each other. And we were just celebrating. At the end of the celebration, in the middle of the celebration, we had instructors come out and they start screaming at us. And they're like, "What are you guys celebrating for? There's nothing to celebrate over. Like, you guys failed." And they took the plastic dummy and they pulled it out of the building and they threw it out in front of us. And they're like, "We threw in a third victim because you never know how many victims are truly in the fire." And so there's like, if you guys would have done your job, you would have found the victim, in a specific location that we set for you. So all of us, our moods completely changed after that. I felt like complete garbage. And it kind of hit me later on that night when it hit me. I think I went to a Bible study and we were talking about salvation. And it made me realize that Jesus goes into the fire every single day. He goes into the fire to try and save each and every one of us. And if I felt the way that I did about that piece of plastic, how must he feel every single time a soul is lost to that fire in the midst of all that chaos? And that's when it became reality for me. And I decided that I wanted to dedicate more of myself to Christ. So when I did run away and I left and I focused on the world, it made it that much harder for me to come back and face all of you. Because I learned that lesson, and even though I learned that lesson, and I knew it in the back of my mind, I still ran away from it. I guess fast forward, I walked into this church and I saw that Sunday morning, I saw all the familiar faces, and everybody welcomed me with open arms, and it was incredible because even though I had forgotten about most of you had not, you didn't forget about me, and I realized at that moment that we're kind of the same. We're all part of a team. This world, whether you like to believe it or not, is on fire. It's in constant chaos. And we are all part of the same team, and our job is to work together as that team to save as many lives as we can. And I couldn't be more proud to be part of this team. You guys have welcomed me, and you have embraced me with open arms. And I love being a part of this team, and I love each and every one of you. And I think it's very important to remember, before I finish my testimony, that I want to end on this note, and I want to say it right. So many things happen at church and in our lives that can cause distractions. We all have one goal and one mission, and we just need to remember, right, that no matter what happens outside of our lives that may cause us to be distracted, we need to remember that there's a goal that we need to stay focused on, even if it's just for one life. We need each other now more than ever, and your house church is a great start to building a great team. I know my house church has been amazing to me. They've been a huge rock, a huge support, and I'd like to thank Hiroshima House Church for that, for sticking by my side through thick and thin. And I guess the moral of the story is, for all you mothers out there who might have children who are a little rebellious and are runaways, don't give up on them. Nagging actually does work. So, I'm living proof of that. My mom's nagging brought me back. So, as long as you keep nagging your kids, it'll work. You just don't give up on them. I think giving up is probably the worst thing you could do. But we can't do it alone, and that's my testimony. Yeah.